Hello, greetings and welcome, my dear listeners. My name is Heretical Hatter, and I welcome you to this third installment of my Tau Reimagined series. I apologize for a slight delay. Sadly, real life came crashing down upon me, and I had few things to take care of. But now that I'm back, we can continue our little adventure. And today we will be talking about life of Tau, both in terms of how Tau life usually looks like and some myths and stories about the Tau society as a whole. Before we start, I would like to address something. One of you asked in the comments if I will be talking about Xenos within the Tau Empire. Fret not, my friends, all Xenos will be addressed, or at least all that I wrote stuff about, because I intend to have dozens of races within the Tau Empire. However, I will be talking about them in chronological order, as the next episode will be about the start of the history of the Tau. We will be going through the ages, and with passing of time, we will see new Xenos. I will do so because the project I wrote is quite long, and I put a lot of work about history of the Tau, which before was simply known as the first sphere of expansion. And I expanded the ideas about this undeveloped by the Black Library era to quite a big extent. As such, I ask for your patience, but if you have any questions, I will either address them directly in the comments or in the main video, or I will make even some kind of Q&A mini-series next to the main one, just to address some things that weren't addressed directly in the series. Now then, my darlings, let's start our little episode with discussion about myths about the Tau society. As we all know, there are a lot of myths about the Tau and their society. A lot of it is just imperial propaganda or simply misunderstanding of a Tau culture. Let's start with the most common myth of all, that the Tau have assigned partners by the will of ethereals, implying that Tau don't have intimate love and pair with each other just for the good of the empire. This is a lie. Both concept of love and family differs between Tau and the humans. First of all, Tau recognize the difference between sexual and romantic partners. A person you love is not just a lover, it's a soulmate. And here is the problem with imperial translation, because for the Tau, lover and soulmate is the same, but it's not the same as sexual partner. So for a Tau, soulmate can be a different gender, a same gender, a different species even. But that doesn't mean that they have a sexual relationship. As procreation is generally controlled by the ethereals, it is a fact that there are people who are assigned to each other to make new children. However, a Tau have a right and ability to ask for permission so that their soulmate would also be their assigned sexual partner. So we can already see two types of relationships. One is a sign. You are there to make a child and you are done. And there is one which is a bit deeper in terms of relationship. So a myth that the Tau Empire assigns you a girlfriend is a bullshit story. It was either made up by their propaganda machine, or they just misunderstood the whole process and just assume that in Tau Empire you get a free girlfriend if you are following the Xenos Empire. Well, it's not so easy, my darlings. Not so easy at all. Talking about reproduction, I will also make some things clear. No, the greater good doesn't approve abortion if accidents happen. If two fire warriors fool around and here comes a child, this is an accident and parents will have a reprimand, sure, but the child will be fine. Abortions are allowed, but if parents want to keep a child, no problems. The Tau don't forcibly ensure which gender is born or how many children will come from each pregnancy. This doesn't happen. Another fun fact is that Vita wombs aren't unknown to the Tau, and if population needs to be boosted in terms of number of people, it's relatively easy to buy both program of reproduction and Vita wombs to boost the number of children quite a lot. And because the Tau have communal families and communal raising of children, even those children from tubes and Vita wombs will get a full family and both mother and father figure, even if there aren't biological parents. This technology proved exceptionally useful when dealing with exceptionally good Tau commanders or very valuable soldiers, because if you have, for example, a female admiral, that is just amazing, and the Imperials want those genes to survive. But taking her out of front or out of a fleet would be quite a bit of loss. So, what to do? You take her DNA, boop, take another air-cast admiral's DNA, and you put them into Vita wombs, and boop comes the children who are then raised in the communal way of the Tau. Simple and efficient. Now, some Imperial fans might get uncomfortable in this very moment, because that sounds dangerously close to the death corps of Krieg. Oh my god, are the Tau just clones? Are they blue because they are clones? No, calm down. What might surprise you, but the greater good doesn't really approve direct cloning. It is seen as unnatural in many ways, while the Vita wombs is still taking DNA from two people and making a new child and moving forward in terms of evolution and general genetical progress. If you keep making clones, it's more problematic. Even when faced with DNA of someone as great as Commander Puritite, Imperials didn't dare to clone him. It was seen as too dangerous and clones as unstable technology. So, it's a more classic Vita womb, where there is simply DNA from two people and new child comes out. Another thing which is important for this discussion is tinkering with DNA. And oh boy, Do feels like to tinker with DNA? Oh, they like it a lot. After all, we are talking about a ruling caste of a massive empire, and it would be really bad if somehow a mutation showed up, for example one that would make their pheromones less potent for most of the Tau. That would be terrible. That would start a disaster, the fall of a great empire and the destruction of a greater good. Thankfully Tau live only in the Tau Empire, and there is no one who broke away from the control of ethereals and can tamper with Tau DNA in different direction. Yeah, if you didn't hear sarcasm in my voice, I apologize. Because that will be a plot point if I go further with my project. That after Damocles' Gulf Crusade, both Farsight and Ethereals would tamper with Tau DNA in new interesting ways. What will be a result of those tamperings? Well, for now, I can only tell you one thing, my dear listeners. Prepare for the unforeseen consequences. The next fun myth about the Tau society is that they live quite separated from each other, that each caste have their own buildings and they don't tend to interact too much. This is a blatant lie, because they interact a lot. After all, greater good is based on the idea of cooperation. As such, all castes interact with each other from basically a very beginning of their life. And because there are many specializations which are interconnected between castes, there is also training between both castes in those fields. I already talked in previous videos about Fire Caste and Earth Caste cooperating to create field medics and field engineers. And that's important for general theme of Tau in my rewrite, that while the Fire Caste, for example, is still the main military one, that doesn't mean that you won't see an Earth Caste engineer or Earth Caste medic on the front lines. You will see them, they will have a different armor, a different weapons maybe even, but they will be seen on the front line, which would also make a really nice models. There are, of course, other places where castes cooperate. Earth and Air Caste is simple. In this case, we are talking about void construction, because the Earth Caste, who, constructs massive vessels in the void, would probably need a three-dimensional training, and the same way, the Air Caste, who needs to help Earth Caste build those vessels, which they will use later, would probably also need some understanding of engineering. The same goes for water and fire castes. You could think that water and fire don't work well together. That's not entirely the case, because what about detective work? What about law enforcement? Here, water caste and fire caste would work greatly together. For example, fire caste would have to learn, for example, how to de-escalate situation, and water caste as detectives would probably need to know how to fire a damn gun if there would be a need for it. Now I would like to address the greatest, the most problematic and infuriating myth about the Tau Empire. And it's the fact that it's known as a Tau Empire. because that name is a pile of shit. You know what Tau Empire sounds to me? It sounds like a terrible translation by the Imperial scholars. It almost feels like a 19th century megalomania of basically all of European states, but every state is an empire. There's Russian Empire, there's German Empire, there's Austro-Hungarian Empire, there's French Empire, there's British Empire. Fucking hell, everyone is an emperor because they made up the fucking title. Get into your fucking lane and shut up. First of all, Tau Empire as a concept isn't an empire of a Tau species, it's an alliance, an union of numerous minor Xeno species which stand together against the darkness of a 40k galaxy in the name of greater good. Even if we looked on the Tau structure alone, they aren't ruled by the singular leader, they are ruled by a council. Sure, there is Ethereal Supreme, who is a leader, a head of a council, but that's just a chancellor, that's not an emperor. For fuck's sake, Games Workshop, what the fuck did you think making that name? They didn't think this through. They didn't think this through. And with all we know about the Tau, would you really think that they would call themselves an empire? That's bullshit, that's Turok's shit, that's Grok's shit, that's every type of shit that you can think of. I must point out that the symbol of the Tau Empire isn't a symbol of Tau Empire. The symbol of the Tau Empire is a symbol of a fucking fire caste. So an empire of 5 castes united in the greater good use a symbol of a fire caste as their symbol? Really? Really? Are they really that fucking lazy that they couldn't come up with a new fucking symbol? Hell, just join all those symbols of all castes into one. Here it is. Fucking hell, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I hope you could hear the pain and anguish coming from the very depths of my soul. Good Lord, in terms of lore, this is the most terrible of all in the canon, in my opinion. I can forgive and accept a lot, but this is beyond fucking dumb. And not even in fun orc way dumb. No, it's just really fucking stupid and really fucking lazy. And now you might ask yourself why I didn't address this name, the Tau Empire, at the very start of the series. After all, the series is named Tau Empire Reimagined. If I don't like the name, why I didn't point out that I'm changing the name of a state at the very start? Well, here's the explanation. First of all, I really like the idea that this is a terrible imperial translation of a state that the Tau live under. Second of all, there will be a difference between the Tau state and the alliance of all minor Xenos who joined the ideology of the greater good. Right now, I will only tell you the name of the state the Tau live under. In fact, I already said it, because the Tau know their own country, their own state, as simply the state, or more precisely, the United Authority. You see, the Imperium of Man is interesting because it's not Imperium of humanity, it's the Imperium of Man, one man, the Emperor of mankind. And the Tau Empire, as it's known among the Imperials, is united authority. United authority of all castes. The united authority of the state. The Imperium of Man cannot exist without their emperor, without their god. The united authority, however, it's both the people, the ideology, and the territory in one. What a simple explanation, isn't it? For the Imperials, idea of united authority or authority at all, the authority is in the God Emperor. So they named the Tau state the Tau Empire, because it's created by the Tau and they see it as uniting authority, so it must be empire. And what's most important, the Imperium see both the united authority and their allies as a single entity, as the Tau Empire. This isn't true. United authority is only a part of far bigger multi-state organization. And this alliance is known by the Imperium of Man as the Tau Empire. However, the name of this alliance won't be revealed here. We will be talking about it in the future episodes when we talk about the history of this alliance and the united authority. To keep things simple and understandable, I will still be using the term the Tau Empire when talking about the united authority. However, when we will be talking about this greater alliance, I will be using a different name, for which you will have to wait a little bit longer. This little rant is connected to the last myth I want to talk about, and that's Ethereals control and dominate all other minor Xenos factions within this greater organization. Here is a thing. It's not really so simple. Some aliens want to be annexed by the united authority directly, and some only become their allies. So the degree of control differs between different species within this alliance. Some are more independent, some are more reliant, some are closer, and some are just on the arm's length in terms of the relationship with the Tau. So this also will be explored in the history section in the next episode. Well, that was a long talking, so now let's talk about a typical Tau life and the stages of life in the Tau society. With a permission, two Tau of the same caste give birth to an offspring. It's usually 1 or 2 kids, although 3 or even 4 aren't unheard of. In ages past, pregnancies of more than 3 children were dangerous to females by sheer weight of offsprings and amount of food needed for a mother and her children. In the modern age, however, this isn't as problematic. Even special exosuits exist as to lighten the strain on the female body during the pregnancy. At birth, child will be given their first name, or rather a nickname, before they grow big enough to show some kind of characteristic or given a proper name. This differs between the castes, as I discussed in the other video. Tau grow up in communal complexes, where all the families care about all the children. Usually the moment of reproduction is synchronized, so all the children are of the same age, which is very important for interactions between the young ones and building up the social skills needed to work well within the Tau society. During very fast population growth programs, it's not unheard of to have child every 2 years, which creates a stable gap in ages between children. As I said before, it's not unheard of to have a vita womb children in those complexes, which are just simply added to the greater number of the children in the building. This method is especially popular among the fire caste, which doesn't like to sit idle, and the need for soldiers during military campaigns requires many of them to serve all the time and don't spend time raising children. Though it all depends on the sept. There are many septs that still practice very fire caste tradition of singular families. So it's a mix in this case. What is important of note is that all parents in the complex are seen as everyone's parents. Children are expected to talk to adults in very particular manner, like father this, mother this. Before the name of a person is always the title of father or mother. Those first 4 years for a Tau is a basic learning of speaking, writing, counting, and spiritual importance of the greater good. The indoctrination into Tau Va is ensured from the very birth. This is especially important because, as stated before, ethereal's pheromones don't control the minds of a Tau, but can influence them. So, this indoctrination creates a proper mechanism within the Tau mind to obey ethereals. After those 4 years, children take an extensive exam. It's not a test or exam in terms of answers A, B, C, and D. No, there are no wrong answers. This exam tests their creativity, logical mind, and tenacity, and any other aspects of their life. Their mind, their brain activity, and their genes are analyzed to see in what region and what specialization of the Tau society they will fit best in. On those tests is determined in which general direction they will go. For example, a fire caste who is more empathetic won't go to the frontline soldiers or battlesuit pilots. He will be rather put into law enforcement because this kind soul would work better in simply controlling people and not, beating them into submission. The same way an earth caste can be found to love plants and be great future farmer, or maybe a builder, or a medic, or maybe some kind of researcher, or maybe they are just really angry and have a lot of tenacity and you are just sending them straight into combat engineer program and you letting them be as a mini version of the fire warriors. An air caste? Well, maybe they are a loner, maybe they will be good for courier ships, maybe they are more of transport people who will be more empathetic and ready to talk with passengers, or maybe they have great strategic mind and they can be rulers of entire battle fleets. For water caste, just as well, some will go to law enforcement, some will become diplomats, some will become spies, and some simple administrators, or maybe their talents will be put into being an artist and create great works of art and propaganda for the Tau Empire. After those 4 years and finishing the exam, all the children are moved out of the family complex. Their time as simple children with basic education has basically ended. A 4-year-old Tau, that is, in human standards, an 8-year-old, leaves family home and is sent to training school, where she or he will spend another 2 years being prepared for going to the true academy. Those 2 years in the training school are more like a checking. If the initial exam, which was taken by the age of 4, was correct. After all, the Tau aren't arrogant or dumb enough to think that one exam is enough to determine the fate of a Tau. After all, a lot can change in a very short amount of time, and new talents show up in this short period of time. That's why those 2 years are more of general training, where the Tau are keep getting tested and checked if the initial look at what they would excel at is correct. Separated from their initial families and put before the great introduction machine of a Tau Empire, those first 2 years are in most cases enough to create very loyal Tau to the Tau ideology, or the greater good as it's more popularly known. And after those 2 years, the Tau take another exam, which ensures which specialization they will go into. With that test, the fate of a Tau is basically decided, in what direction they will go, and their specialization in the future postings. However, before all that, they need to be trained, and trained well. Between 6 and 10 years for a Tau is the time when they train for their specialized role. It's when they get their first rank, Sa'al, which roughly translates to cadet. Those 4 years will be of excessive training and schooling. Every cadet will be brought to their breaking point and back again to test their resolve, determination, and loyalty to the greater good. Thanks to nature of a Tau mind, proper diet and way of teaching, those young Tau will take in all information like a sponge, and in the fires of training, they will come out proper members of a Tau society. After graduation, let's call it, every Tau is given their first true rank, which is known as La, which is to be added to the caste in their name. So, for Fire Caste, Shas La, Earth Caste, Fio La, Water Caste, Por La, for Air Caste, Kor La, and for Ethereals, Aun La. Those first 4 years in their new rank is mostly around classic grunt work and training. Simple work, simple task. It's a time for them to get familiar with their place, their work, and the unit they will work with. Their progress and skill is documented by their superiors. After those 4 years, there's a chance to go for exam, or to be elevated to the next rank if given Tau proven themselves by some great accomplishment. This is connected to the Fire Caste tradition of trial by fire, where every 4 years a warrior was given a challenge and opportunity to move up in ranks. This tradition was adopted by the wider Tau society, and now all Tau test themselves every 4 years in hope to rise up in the ranks. Of course, each caste have their own trials, just as their names differ. The Earth Caste doesn't take a trial of fire, they take trial of earth. Those who will pass the test will go up the ranks, and those who fail will remain in their current rank usually needing to wait for another 4 years to get another chance. Some sept worlds offer taking the test sooner, although by tradition most give option to take it every 4 years and not sooner. An exception from this rule is when a given Tau accomplished something truly amazing, and in this case they have opportunity or are simply raised up in rank because of their accomplishment. This moment in Tau life was also a moment when Commander Puretide managed to find his 3 pupils: Commander Farsight, Commander Shadowed Sun, and Okais the Loner. With a past trial, the Tau is given a new rank, this time with ending of Ui, a proof that a Tau is either experienced in his specialization or is a veteran in the field. This is also a moment when Tau are either assigned a temporary partner to have a child or create a bond between each other, as I was talking in the myth section of this episode. As communal society, while love between 2 people isn't unheard of, it's also isn't rare for one person to have many partners, or that this partnerships is only temporary. After all, Ethereals do like to temper with Tau quite a lot, and if there is one Tau who is exceptionally good in something, well, the more the children they have, the better, no matter what way it is accomplished. For a fire caste, this moment in life is especially important, because next to the chance of having children is also a moment when they can become a battlesuit pilot, which is the greatest honor for a fire caste out there. At this stage, similar chances to go up in ranks and get truly important stations in their caste, it's in this very moment. But there's also one more thing which is very important about this moment in Tau life. Taking care of a children is problematic in this moment, because if you have a child, it's rather rare for a Tau to rise up in ranks, because you spend a lot of time taking care of your offspring. So most Tau, vast majority of a Tau, don't pass the first trial in this moment of their life. Vast majority of a Tau serves up to 8 years to pass to next rank, rather than just 4. But either 4 or 8 years, with passing of a next trial, the Tau is getting a new rank, Vre. This rank will be achieved by many Tau in their lifetime. For many, it will be the very end of their careers. And you might ask, why? After achieving a rank of Vre, a Tau is given a choice to either move up in ranks or get a specialized rank, a special rank. Special ranks is a bit complicated, but basically, if you get the special rank, this will be the end of your career. Like, this is the ending. You won't be able to go up in ranks. You will never become a commander, for example, but you will get a title of this very specialized unit in the Tau society. A good example is a title of Nel in the Fire Caste, which is connected to Shas Nel. In other words, a fire blade, who takes a role of infantry commander. So, rather than go up in ranks or choose to be battlesuit pilot, those specialized Tau fire warriors decide to be an infantry commanders and get title of Nel. Those people are deeply respected in the Tau society because they throw away their own glory, their own chance to be great and become specialized part of a Tau society. Many Tau don't choose to be Nel in those first 4 years. Many times they go through first 4 years of rank Vre, they don't pass a test or the next trial, and then they decide to get into more specialized role. And with that, they find their place in the Tau society to basically the end of their life. This level of rank usually also gives some command and control to a given Tau. A fire warrior can become a tank commander, or maybe a pilot of a heavy battlesuit, or maybe a commander of small crisis suit team. For vast majority of a Tau, this is a final rank they will ever achieve. As I said, usually they start with Vre and then go into specialized ranks, like for example Nel. The next rank is L, which is very important as they are seen as junior commanders and junior officers of the Tau Empire and the entire Tau society. This is a moment where the Tau serves directly under the great masters and leaders of the Tau society, and they are just one step before reaching this highest level of rank. There are many candidates to go up in rank, but for many this will be the end of their careers. They will not rise above being junior officers, sadly for them. The most talented of the Tau will get a mentor in this moment in their life, and with that get a straight and simple way to go up in the ranks all the way to the top after the final trial. With a final trial, a Tau is granted the highest rank, O, which means that they've proven themselves and are on the very top of the ladder. Or, well, as high as they possibly can be. Now there's only one thing which decides their true authority, and it's age. The older in rank, the higher your authority, usually. Unofficially, the very first years of being in this rank is a time of testing by all other commanders. They check how they work, in what places they are good at, and depending on their skill and loyalty, they will be given more and more responsibility. The Tau who reach the rank of O serve that to the very end of their life. And although many choose to retire, their retirement isn't really sitting around and resting. No, most of them will become teachers for younger generations or creators of textbooks and simply learning material for future generations. Now, depending on the value of individual Tau, the officials can tinker here and there and do their best to extend a life of a given Tau. By cryo-freezing, by giving augmentations, and a Tau can have their lifespan even doubled by the Tau technology, if the officials approve it. And that's the thing. that the greatest minds of a Tau society live only as long as ethereals want them, or need them, more likely. After all, most Tau will live between 40 and 60 years, and the very best Tau will achieve the rank of Awe in 28 years since their birth. Vast majority, however, will achieve it in 36, or will not achieve it at all. As such, those Tau are relatively old, and their fate can be changed depending on the ethereal's will. And I think that's basically it, my darlings. We talked about the myths of a Tau society, my little rant about the stupid name of their empire, and finally, about standard Tau life. Next on the list is the Tau history, which we'll talk about around 6,000 years, which I expanded upon quite a lot. But that's for another episode. If you liked what you heard, please leave a comment, like or subscribe if you really want to. Not pushing. This is a fun project either way. But I think I held you here for long enough. So, wherever you are, my darlings, have a most heretical day. Ta-ta!